You may be a hero or you may be a civilian. You may be a detective or you may be a mercenary. Whatever the case, you have a choice in front of you. One option will destroy a world and its inhabitants. The other will allow everyone to live a happy, idealized life. The choice is clear. So, why are you hesitating? I'm of the mind that an ending can make or break a story. That's not always fair, I know. It's about the journey, not the destination. When game developers run out of time or money, they'll put the less polished content at the end. Maybe test audiences will hate the original ending and demand a change. There can be any number of extenuating circumstances. But that doesn't change that if the story doesn't stick the landing, it'll leave a bad taste in my mouth. Video games are an interactive medium. They allow multiple endings in ways most fiction can't. Thus, some developers will choose to give you a good ending as a reward. Maybe you found all 900 pine cones and can see everyone live happily ever after. Or maybe you made the right choices to prevent the villain from taking over. But some games go in another direction. Take the choice at the end of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. In one ending, you defeat the threat looming over Lumiere and its people. Everyone whose lives were tragically cut short gets another chance, and Maëlle can live her own life in a body she feels comfortable in. Even Verso, who grew tired of eternity and begged for death, may now grow old. In the other ending, everyone in the world dies with no hope of return. Maëlle is forcibly returned to both a life and a body she feels aren't hers, and while she may be able to reconcile with her family eventually, that's clearly not happening anytime soon. With only that information, it should be pretty clear that the former ending is the good one, no? So why is the former ending framed negatively while the latter ending is framed positively? To be clear, there is no good ending. The developers have stated as much time and time again, but if you look for discussions on the endings online, people will still often refer to their preferred ending as the good one. So if there is a good one, the developers are wrong or lying or whatever, obviously it's gotta be the Verso ending, right? It's portrayed as wistful, yes, but Alicia will get to live a full life. Yeah, never mind that Maëlle thing, that's just some silly childish fantasy. Her name is Alicia. She'll get to live a full life, reconcile with her family, and avoid falling under the thrall of escapism while the last fragment of the original Verso's soul can rest. And if that's the good ending, then the Maëlle ending has to be the bad one. Everything is so creepy. People who died before the start of the game are back. Painted Verso is furious about his prison, and the last fragment of the original Verso's soul is still stuck painting. Maëlle is slowly dying, which the game reminds you of with a jump scare. Bear in mind, framing is what ties all this together. The ending where everyone you care about dies without even a hint of agency sees warm colors paint its canvas. The ending where everyone can live in bliss is monochrome. Without the context of what happens in those endings, it's clear which one you should consider good. Just as it's clear which one you should consider good with only the context of what happens in those endings rather than the framing. I'm not here to argue about Expedition 33's endings. You can find enough of that on the social media platform of your choice. I want to emphasize how much it stood out to me that you have to decide which ending is better. Maybe they're both bad, so you're choosing the less bad option. Or maybe you conclude that Lumiere and its people aren't actually sentient, so no harm, no foul in Verso's ending. Or maybe you see that Maëlle's storyline is a trans allegory, even if unintentionally so, and you refuse to strip her away from a life she enjoys with real people and a body she feels comfortable in. I might have read a bit into that ending there, but you get the picture. You have to decide to make your own choice depending on the information you have available. And then you have to decide if you made the right choice after the fact. I've thought about these endings a lot since I completed the game last year. I felt the story worsened with each act, reaching its nadir by the endings, admittedly, but these endings remain on my mind nonetheless. When my friends play through the game, my neurons light up with the excitement of eventually discussing the endings, what they chose, and why. So I don't think I can say the endings are part of this nadir if they're still lingering in my head. And that got me thinking, what about other games with multiple endings? Specifically, what if games where either there is no good ending, or the good ending isn't the best one? How can you decide what's for the best? Take the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. This is a Kotaro Uchikoshi game, which means you can expect a bunch of endings in a complex, mind-bending plot. However, like his other games, the endings range from bad to good, with one best ending, if you will. In the games, you typically know when you've reached said best ending because every plot point has been fully resolved, and the characters have a dance party over the credits. It's pretty goofy, but it's fun. Nirvana Initiative is no different. You defeat the villain, save the day, and solve the mysteries. Everyone's been through hardship, but they've all grown from it. This is even a line in the ending song. Even with all of the sorrow inside, we are the conquerors, we achieve our dreams together. At last, we truly are whole. That's how his games end. Sometimes the ending's happier, and sometimes it's more bittersweet, but the characters all grow closer as they face the future together. But is that really the best ending? Multiple innocent people have died. Kizuna, who cared about dancing more than anything else in the world, can never dance again. Kaname Date, the first game's protagonist, lost years of his life, which strained his relationship with his adopted daughter even more. There sure is a lot of sorrow inside. What if there was a way to take that sorrow, well, away? You may remember, early in the game's first half, 6 years in the past, Tokiko, an enigmatic CEO, can ask for a code. You won't know what this means at the time. Why would you? And you also won't know that Tokiko, while not the serial killer, is one of the masterminds behind everything bad in this game. And the game gives you an opportunity to give her everything she wants. Sometime after her death, a hologram gives Mizuki, one of the playable protagonists, a code. This is a code only Tokiko knows, and her hologram is programmed specifically to give it up after she dies. So there's no possible way anyone else could know the code, especially while she's still alive. Ryuki, the other main playable protagonist, meets with Tokiko 6 years in the past while she is still alive. He obviously can't time travel, but you, the player, can replay that meeting to make Ryuki give her the code. What happens if one person knows a code someone else will receive 6 years in the future if time travel is impossible? A code you could only guess in a literal 1 in a million chance. Tokiko finds out when reality shatters. The entire time, she believed she was in a game, and she was right. Now, she can ascend to godhood. She's not constrained by the game anymore. She begins speaking directly to you, the player. She doesn't care about this world. She knows you do. She gives you the option to tell Ryuki everything. Doing so leads to what's commonly known as the diverge ending. Ryuki, knowing everything that will happen over the next 6 years, stops the serial killer before he can claim any more victims. Those who die throughout the game get to live happy lives. Kizuna never finds herself wheelchair-bound, Date never goes missing, and so on. Of course, no one will believe Ryuki, that's a small price to pay. Does that not make Diverge the best ending? No one goes through their strife, and while Tokiko may have gone away with what she did, She doesn't care about the world anymore. She's not going to hurt anyone here. I'm not going to answer that. Really, I can't. The ending gives me a bad feeling every time I see it, but I don't know if I can say that it's not the better ending for everyone involved. It feels unnatural, but it's real to them. Only Ryuki knows what Tokiko got away with. And does it really matter that she got away considering the alternatives? By all objective measures, it should be a better ending. The only one who can answer if it actually is a better ending is you, the player. While an eventual sequel will probably follow the ending with the dance party, this ending asks exactly what Expedition 33's two endings ask. What do you personally think is for the best? Two other games that ask that question in fascinating ways are Undertale and Fire Emblem Three Houses. Undertale is not a game that should be on this list at first glance. The clear best ending is the true pacifist ending, where you save everyone who can be saved. Toby Fox even once tweeted, "You've all seen the happiest outcome." That's my Toby Fox voice now, I guess. He's clearly talking about the true pacifist ending. I don't disagree. But that's not the only ending. It's not even the only good ending. Undertale has three main endings in True Pacifist, Neutral, and Genocide. But Neutral has a ton of variety in its options. If you kill one single monster, everyone is still trapped in the underground, but they're doing well. If you let only one single monster live, everyone is still trapped in the underground, and Sans is left with crippling guilt for letting you do that. The one constant across every neutral ending is that the monsters are still trapped in the underground, but Frisk has escaped. Sometimes the monsters live in fear. Sometimes they'll rise up to find a way to break the barrier and kill you. There's an incredible number of options, but my favorite is what fans refer to as the annoying dog ending. When you kill only Toriel, Papyrus, Undine, and Mettaton, no one else, just those four, the underground is briefly thrown into chaos before a dog takes the throne. Sans directly tells you this is best for everyone, and he even thanks you, even after you killed his brother. This is a joke ending, yes, but it's still a valid ending you can get. Sure, the monsters are still trapped underground, and 4 inhabitants are dead, but the monsters live in an anarcho-communist utopia. Isn't that great? What I keep coming back to on this ending is how different it is. Sans doesn't give you grief for killing Papyrus. Other endings where you kill fewer monsters are more downtrodden. You have to be meticulous in choosing to kill these 4 and no one else. And beyond that, isn't the true pacifist ending better anyway? Everyone lives in that ending. Why would you choose this one? A joke ending you have to jump through a bunch of hoops for is one thing. I'm fond of the dirty hacker ending myself. But this is fairly doable, and it's just as valid as any other neutral ending. I think that if you choose a neutral ending, this is probably your best bet. It's not even the happiest neutral ending, but it's the one you are directly told is best for everyone. Unlike other endings in this essay, you don't even have to infer the result. Maybe if you play Genocide, which will ruin True Pacifist, you can aim for this ending after. But Fire Emblem Three Houses presents a more serious take on the annoying dog ending in its church ending. Really. Edelgard, Claude, Dimitri, and Rhea are all dead, unless you choose to marry Rhea. She's kind of your grandmother and daughter at the same time, so you really shouldn't do that. And with all of them gone, Byleth, your avatar, ends up as the head of the church, and thus with the most power in Fodland. You are the annoying dog in this ending. But is it best for everyone? Three Houses locks you into an ending immediately if you choose to join either the Blue Lions or the Golden Deer at the beginning of the game. Both endings see you fend off Edelgard's Adrestian Empire in different ways. Dimitri develops from a serial killer to a redeemed king in the Blue Lions route. In the Golden Deer route, you can take care of the Agarthan threat once and for all before, the fandom likes the joke, Claude ends racism. But you do get to choose your ending if you side with the Black Eagles. You have to go out of the way to unlock the choice, but once you do, the game asks you something no other root or, hell, no other Fire Emblem at all does. Once you learn that Edelgard is the mysterious Flame Emperor who's been working with those who slither in the dark, the Agarthan organization that burned down a village, kidnapped students and faculty at Garrigmog Monastery, and killed your father, you're given a choice. Side with Rhea and move toward your own annoying dog ending, not that you'd know that on your first playthrough, or side with Edelgard. Which ideology do you believe in more? There is no objectively good option. The Church executes heretics early on, and Rhea tries to get her mother to take over Byleth's body, essentially killing you, almost immediately before this choice. Your father, Gerald, also never trusts her. On the other hand, yes, Edelgard has worked with these monsters, but she has a future she clearly believes in, and she wasn't privy to their atrocities. Again, I cannot stress this enough. There is no good choice to make here. There's only the choice of which side you agree with more. The game doesn't hide that Edelgard's path is a bloody one. She wants to remake Fodland more radically than Claude and Dimitri do, but it's impossible to get there without killing heroes, including Dimitri and Rhea, at the very least. This is especially clear if you don't start with Edelgard's route, as you know the direction the story will ultimately take. Part of why I think you're given the choice to side with Edelgard is because you really have to believe in her ideology. Sure, she's not the one who chooses to nuke a city, and her ending even implies she plans to take care of the Agarthan threat just as Claude does in his ending. But the fact that you have a choice at all means the game stops to give you an opportunity to decide if you think Edelgard is right. And if she is right, is it worth the death and destruction? Is she better than Dimitri, whose dark path turns murderous? Is she better than Rhea, who heads an oppressive religion? Is she better than Claude, who has a much more interesting character arc in Three Hopes? People are passionate about Three Houses, which tells me it did a good job making a compelling argument for all four endings. Sure, it's possible that next month, Fortune's Weave will tell us they all ultimately ended the same anyway. It's too soon to say. But I don't think that really takes away from a question Three Houses allows you alone to answer. Whose ending is for the best? Ending decisions are a minor element of Hollow Knight and a major element of the 100-line Last Defense Academy. Hollow Knight has 5 endings, but Silksong helpfully tells us 3 of them are not canon. The reason I say that's helpful is because they are pretty explicitly bad endings in different ways. However, the 2 endings left fascinate me, in part because I can never decide which is better for Hallownest and its inhabitants. Dream No More, the best ending in the base game, sees the knight defeat the Radiance, the source of the infection plaguing the land. However, the knight sheds their mortal form, leaving behind only a cracked skull. You could probably already surmise this, but Silksong would later reveal that they return to their birthplace, the Abyss. The Hollow Knight likely goes back too, which is relevant considering the other ending I'm going to talk about. Delicate Flower, the hardest ending to get in the game, sees the knight once again defeat the Radiance. This time, however, Void from the Abyss starts to take over Godhome. It ekes out into Hallownest, indicating a new disaster is about to replace the previous one. From what Silksong shows us, if it succeeds it won't be pretty. And then, all of a sudden, it's gone. With the Delicate Flower you gave the Godseeker, who allows you to travel to Godhome, the Void vanishes. With the infection gone, the Hollow Knight finally leaves their seal confronting Hornet. The ending cuts off there, leaving what happens next ambiguous. Silksong's own best ending references both of these endings, as if Team Cherry is allowing you to decide which you prefer. On the surface, they're not too different, but there are a few key details worth noting. In Dream No More, Hornet knows of her siblings' efforts, and the Knight and the Hollow Knight both can be at peace in the Abyss. In Delicate Flower, Hornet doesn't know what her siblings done. No one does. Maybe the Godseeker, who is almost certainly claimed by the Abyss, a terrible fate in of itself. And the Hollow Knight is free, but will they attack Hornet? They're not infected anymore, so who's to say? Do they just get their old mind back? The endings functionally mean the same thing for Hollow Nest, with the biggest differences being the fates of the Hollow Knight and the Godseeker. Bittersweet though they are, they're both the best endings Hollow Nest can get. It just comes down to which you prefer. That's what this all comes back to. Which ending do you prefer? Why? What makes it a good ending to you? Or, if there are multiple good endings, what makes it the best? It's easier to decide when you only have two options, but the more there are, the more difficult this becomes. Take the 100-line Last Defense Academy, which has, as the name promises, 100 endings. They're not all true endings for what it's worth. Several are just glorified game overs. And despite how Tokyo Games promoted 100-line pre-release, there is a best ending you can get. Of course there is. Uchikoshi wrote big parts of the game, including the overall structure. The story is long and complex, so just stay with me as I explain in as simple terms as I can. The best ending is ending 55, all 17 of us. It requires you to play through significant portions of the game, see other endings, and it's the only ending where every student at Last Defense Academy gets to escape and return home alive. Kind of. There are a few cliffhangers and lingering plot threads, but the biggest one is the fate of the invader Ava. In most routes, she is brainwashed, becoming a servant for the students at the academy. The few routes where she either gets her mind back or avoids brainwashing altogether don't end well for her. And the game doesn't forget this either. Your final choice, which determines whether you get this ending or ending 54, one massacre to another, sees you choose to kill everyone on the planet for 54. In turn, Ava gets her memories back and vows to kill every human alive as she returns to your home with you, where the last of humanity is. I almost feel as if that ending's there to remind you that this isn't a perfect ending. For how hard you've worked, you haven't saved everyone. Ava's daughter's still out there too, with no idea what happened. And that's not to get into the moral issues with the brainwashing itself, which is something I could go on about all day. Also notable about this ending, the characters understand very little about the state of the world. Only protagonist Takumi and major character Hiruko might, but the others have yet to learn of the dark secrets behind the Academy and humanity itself. There's no indication life will be easy for them once they make it back home, and director Kazutaka Kodaka even said that he hopes that ending will turn out well for everyone. Seems like a big question mark over the ostensibly best ending, doesn't it? So what other endings are there? Well, there's ending 1, Farewell Last Defense Academy, my personal favorite. In this route, everyone learns the dark truths about the Academy and their lives, giving them existential dread. Things only get worse from there. I know there was a spoiler warning at the beginning of the video, but I do recommend experiencing this ending for yourself. If you want to do that, you can skip to the timestamp on screen now. Otherwise, I'm going to give a brief summary. Humanity is destroyed, and while the students defeat the person who did that, they all sacrifice themselves to save the world. One by one, they go down, and while they succeed, they do save the world. The only student who survives is Nozomi, who's also the only actual human among the students. This makes her the last human in existence, even. He ends up encountering a group of children from this planet, and there's the implication that as they connect, there'll be a hopeful and even peaceful future. The whole thing is utterly soul-crushing, but it's one of the only endings that feels like a resolution and natural conclusion for the story to me. Another ending that resolves the overarching conflict is ending 6, Seeds of Hope. This time, Nozomi dies, but after 15 years, the students and Commune, Ava's daughter, finally end the war between the humans and the invaders. Many people die, but the hint of peace in ending 1 becomes a promise here. What about ending 22, Lambs to the Slaughter? Turns out there's a rebellion to usurp the evil humans in charge back home, and the students go to potentially join the rebellion. It's ambiguous to the point of frustration, but it is the only ending that genuinely opens up the possibility that the students can effect change among the bloodthirsty human leaders. If you care about the students' relationships with each other, then maybe the best ending to you is ending 47, Bittersweet Youth. What could be better than the power of friendship, as well as the implication that Takumi and Nozomi will finally get together now that he's confessed his love to her? There are plenty of other endings I could talk about from this game. I haven't even mentioned the one where Takumi grows a fish head and goes to live in the ocean, but I'd hope the point is clear by now. Despite the existence of Ending 55, which takes place after every other ending in the game and is billed as the only one where all 17 students survive, which is kind of true, it might not be the objective best. It isn't to me, at least. My favorite endings are Ending 1 and an ending I haven't mentioned, Ending 87, Hope from Despair. That's right, I lied. I have 2 favorites. What are you gonna do? To me, Ending 87 is the best out of all of them in terms of character growth. The vast majority of the cast dies, and the future doesn't look too bright for the survivors once you learn the truth about the world. But the relationships and growth, combined with the struggles and sacrifice to get here and the ultimately optimistic outlook, all create an ending that no others can match for me. But despite all that, Ending 87 doesn't resolve the main conflict. Ending 6 is the best in terms of that, seeing it come to an end. You know, this conflict, this main plot of the entire game from day 1. You want to bring that to a close? That's Ending 6. Everyone you speak to will have a different favorite ending, and there are so many others I haven't even discussed here. Still, this game provides the opportunity to stop and ask yourself what makes an ending good. Is it the survival of the main cast? The ultimate end of a forever war? The hope of coexistence in the future? The possibility of stopping the evil elites on their home turf? And so on. No one ending does all of this, not even Uchikoshi's trademark best ending. You have to ask yourself which ending is truly the best. Yes, having 100 endings will exacerbate the problem a bit, but what else could get the point across? And where else will you have to make hard choices about which ending is for the best? Well, how about in the Life is Strange series? I'm only going to cover Life is Strange 1 and Life is Strange 2, the entries developed by Don't Nod. The first game's famous, or perhaps infamous ending is, as most people see it, the only ending where your choices matter. Known as the Bay or Bay ending, protagonist Max Caulfield has to decide between saving the town of Arcadia Bay and saving her best friend, let's be real, girlfriend, Chloe Price. This is not a best of both worlds situation. If you save one, you doom the other, no exceptions. On the surface, it seems like an easy choice, right? Why would you sacrifice an entire town for one person? When I first played the game, I saw it as a character study about Max, culminating in her having to make the ultimate sacrifice as a sign of her maturity. Then I learned I'm probably the only lesbian in the world to have picked Arcadia Bay. If we broaden the scope a bit and look at things a little more metaphorically, it's less, let everyone die or let my girlfriend die, and more, I would sacrifice everything for you. Now, to be clear, when I played, the split in the final choice was an even 50-50. I don't know if it still is, but is that not the most objective example of my thesis of all? Saving Arcadia Bay was clearly intended as the good ending. Beyond the morality of one human life versus an entire town full of them, that ending is much more fleshed out and allows Max the time to grow as a person and potentially even start moving on. Also, Spanish Sahara is just an incredible song, but that's another story. In contrast, in Chloe's ending, they drive away together and that's it. I'm not here to argue one ending is better than the other. If I replayed the game today, I don't know what I'd choose. But how can saving one person by letting an entire population die be the best ending? Wait a minute. This is starting to sound familiar, isn't it? I can't believe Expedition 33 was a ripoff of Life is Strange the entire time. Now, for real, I do want to note Don't Nod somewhat backtracked on this choice in Life is Strange 2. You save Chloe, you learn that there were some survivors in 2. Obviously, not literally everyone would die in the storm regardless, no matter how bad it is. But this is where the devs actively say, not everyone you know and love died. In fact, here's someone who mellowed out significantly and got to patch up his relationship with Chloe. So maybe the devs came around on this. Maybe they thought the choice was too lopsided. Or maybe they would have had to rewrite part of one of the chapters if they committed to killing every last resident of Arcadia Bay. But that doesn't change that even without the existence of Life is Strange 2, players were evenly split on which ending is the good ending. Saving Arcadia Bay may be the utilitarian option, but there are clearly other ways to determine good. Regardless, while I'm on the subject, Life is Strange 2 ups the ending choice to 4. And unlike the first game, where I made my choice and was content, I still have trouble deciding what the best choice of the 4 is. How could anyone? Life is Strange 2 has an inherently unfair premise. 2 Mexican-American brothers end up fleeing the law for something beyond their control. The game follows them as they attempt to cross the border into Mexico, where they'll be safe. You control Sean, who raises his younger brother Daniel. How you raise Daniel will determine which ending group you end up in before you receive a final choice at the border, which will determine which ending within your group you get. You can surrender to the police at the end, and if you raise Daniel to be kind, Sean will go to jail for 15 years before the two finally reunite in the future. Alternatively, if you raise Daniel to be mean, he won't let you surrender that easily. He tries to make you cross the border anyway. He succeeds. You don't. The police murder Sean, and Daniel grows up on his own, heading down a dark path. Or you can decide not to surrender. If you raise Daniel to be kind, he'll let you cross before surrendering himself. He's not in prison, but he does have an ankle monitor and has to stay under house arrest with his grandparents while Sean remains in Mexico. Or if you decide not to surrender and raise Daniel to be mean, they'll both cross the border and live in Mexico together. Something I love about Life is Strange 2 is that it doesn't even pretend to have a good ending. There is no situation where both brothers get their freedom. If they stay together, either Sean loses 15 years of his life in prison and doesn't see Daniel grow up, or they both remain in Mexico, unable to return without being arrested. If they don't stay together, one of them ends up in Mexico, and the other one ends up either under house arrest or dead. Which ending could be considered the best, or perhaps the least bad, depends on the following question. What's most important to you? If it's freedom or family, then you'd want to keep them together. Is it freedom now, but they can never come back to the US and they're heading down a dark path together? Hey, those might not be negatives to you. But the only way they can have true freedom, go where they want, do what they want, is if Sean spends 15 years in prison. And this, again, is for something he did not do. Alternatively, they both have a kind of freedom in the be kind, don't surrender ending. Daniel's movement is limited, but at least he's still with family. Sean can't see his brother again, but he's safe, and if he's dating someone, his partner's there too. That may be the best ending for them if you can live with the guilt of letting the American legal system take Daniel. I struggle with the be mean, do surrender ending as a good ending compared to the others. I think it's probably the worst for both Sean and Daniel. I suppose you could argue Daniel gets his freedom in that ending, but it comes at the cost of everything else. If you think otherwise and believe that ending to be good in its own way, I'd love to hear why. And either way, it doesn't change that among the 4 endings, there is no one ending where both brothers get their freedom and stay together. It is so fascinating that you have 3 bittersweet endings and 1 bad ending, isn't it? Why not make them all bittersweet? Why even have a bad option in the first place if it's the only one? Well, what if we flip our thinking around? Instead of that, I'd like to ask you, when is a bad ending not a bad ending? Persona 5 Royal and Resident Evil Requiem both have their own answers to that question. Hear me out. I know that'll sound pretty strange if you're familiar with either game. Persona 5 Royal has 2 good endings. In the first, which is the original ending of Persona 5, the Phantom Thieves stay a group and will go on further escapades together even as Joker goes back home. It's a pretty happy ending that fits the game preceding it. But in the other good ending, things are different. The Phantom Thieves are growing up. Some of them are going to college. The friend group breaks up, and while they may still be friends and see each other again, the Phantom Thieves as they were are over. Everyone's going off in their own directions. It's sad, it might feel out of nowhere to some, but of those two endings, it's my favorite in part because it's realistic. I saw myself in it. I'm still friends with some people I knew in high school and college, but the actual groups we'd formed have long since broken up. I haven't heard from people I once considered close friends in years. That's just a natural part of life. And beyond that, everyone's grown and faced their inner demons in dealing with the plot of the new semester Royal added. That is important too. But what I love about the ending is really how they grow apart and go their separate ways. It has such a strong sense of finality that when I tried playing Persona 5 Strikers, the sequel, I had to stop because it just felt wrong. There is a conversation to be had about definitive ends versus continuing in perpetuity and the fact that there aren't definitive endings in life, don't get me wrong, but that's for another time. In contrast, take my friend Kiri, who adamantly believes the best ending is the bad ending where Maruki wins. This is something that Kiri feels passionately about, and that was actually my first exposure to the new content in Persona 5 Royal before I played the game at all. I have these on screen, but as you can see, there is an argument to be made that letting the ideal replace the real may not be a bad thing. I personally do believe that wisdom comes through suffering is kind of... yes. Or it's kind of bullshit. Our experiences, good and bad both, make us who we are, but we don't need to suffer to gain something from it. There's so much suffering in the world that is completely unnecessary. So I understand where this argument comes from. I still don't agree with it, but I want to put it on the screen for you. Now, to be clear, despite what I just said, I don't agree with Kiri's take here. But I'm not going to elaborate on that. I'm going to ask a question. So what? Genuinely, so what? Maruki's ending is considered a bad ending. The way Joker and Akechi look at the camera in it, almost as if to say this is your fault for failing, the way Akechi clearly doesn't want this ending in the first place, it's pretty clearly not a good ending at all. But that's just why I think it's considered a bad ending. I'm not going to go into the morality of it and why I disagree with Kiri. Instead, I think this is further evidence of my overall point. Even when an ending is designed as the bad ending, when a game spells out its themes, you don't have to agree with them. You can hear all of them and then you can say, okay, well, that's stupid. People have all sorts of reasons they can prefer what's designed as a bad ending. Hell, that's how I feel about Resident Evil Requiem's ending. Do I think that the bad ending is better for anyone involved in the game? Not at all. Leon dies, Sherry will die. I think it's more than likely that everyone else who survived Raccoon City will die too. Oh, and Emily's not coming back either. It is super bleak. But it's my favorite ending of the two. I think it's much better than the good ending, which will no doubt ultimately go down as the canon ending. The good ending is all about fan service. Everyone lives. You learn Leon is married, the Hound Wolf Squad returns, Chris gets a mention, Emily is fine. For anyone who likes that, that's great. There are people close to me that ending really resonated with. But I'm not one of those people. I prefer Requiem's bad ending thematically. Leon gets pulled into a case involving his past that turns into one last dance and a show of the greats. He's back where it all started just before the end. He faces another tyrant. He only really struggles at this point because he's sick and getting worse. He knows he's just about out of time by the end. He's failed. Or has he? Ultimately, the saving grace in his actions is that they save Grace. He dies suddenly and without fanfare, just like so many enemies he's fought throughout the series. But he allows Grace to get away. The villains are still around, but Leon, despite the lack of fanfare, despite the lack of a blaze of glory, still has the most meaningful death anyone in the series could ask for. He dies for someone. And that's what brings the Requiem full circle. The game is Leon's Requiem. Where else could you end it but where it all began? Because Leon's not the type of guy to retire. He'll keep at it until he dies. And for how much he tries to be the old Leon throughout the game, with his quips and action movie sequences, he is accepted by the end that his time's up. All he can do is make sure Grace at least gets out safely. I know this is not a popular opinion. I know this ending is meant to be seen as more of a punishment for making the wrong choice. And to that, my response? So what? I think the bad ending is much stronger thematically. It gives Leon an interesting arc to me that I don't really see come full circle in the good ending. It gives Grace a fascinating drive moving forward, and it almost feels like the game's been building up to this ending the whole time, especially with all the nostalgia present. Of course, it hasn't built up to this, the true ending. I never really thought they'd kill off Leon. I know plenty of people did, that's fine if you're one of those people. Just, I had my own reasons for not thinking they would, and I was right. But when the game dangles his mortality in your face the entire time, doesn't it make sense that the bad ending would feel like the logical conclusion? To be clear, I don't always think about my favorite endings in terms of character arcs and themes. Of course I do think about those plenty, but I also just want my favorite characters to be okay. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. Sometimes that's what a good ending is. Everyone is alright. Your favorite characters live. Sometimes a good ending isn't about who lives, but what happens overall. Where the story will go after the credits roll. When themes come together to make a cohesive narrative. How it impacts you personally. Which brings me to my final question. Why are ending choices so important to us? Especially when on the surface, those choices don't matter. FromSoft loves giving their games similar endings with slight variations. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I will bring up a few. Dark Souls 1 and 2 both more or less end with allowing you to move forward and accomplish your initial goal, or turn around and leave. Of course, there's plenty more going on. You're choosing whether to link the flame and prolong the Age of Fire. You're deciding whether to take the throne of Drangleic or find your own path. But so much is left unsaid. This isn't even a situation where endings are portrayed in a certain way. You just need to decide which is better and why. The game won't so much as give you crumbs. Which makes it more impressive that Dark Souls 3 challenges this. The game has 4 endings that all have their problems, but the differences are much more pronounced. Now in Dark Souls 3, if you link the flame going for a repeat of Dark Souls 1's ending, congratulations! You prolonged the Age of Fire for such a short time that it won't even matter, and everything you did in this game was for nothing. You can usurp the flames into yourself. You'll start a new age with your heteronormative spouse among your followers. I once had a friend who called this the worst ending, but he didn't elaborate and I didn't ask him to. I wish I did. You can kill the Firekeeper in the ending I'm about to mention. This exists as an extension of player freedom. There are no benefits, it's the only ending that doesn't have an achievement. This ending exists only to allow you the opportunity to do it. People will prefer the bad endings for all sorts of reasons. While we can't even say for sure if this is the worst ending in Dark Souls 3, it is by far the cruelest. If video games can let people choose their endings, then people should have the chance to be cruel, right? For some, that's the most appealing ending of all. Or if none of that suits your fancy, you can just let the flames die and enter an Age of Dark without killing the Firekeeper. This is my personal favorite ending, and it's all due to one line. Hear'st thou my voice still? We don't know what the Age of Dark will be like. We don't know that it's better than usurping the flame. For all we do know, linking the flame and briefly prolonging the Age of Fire is better from a harm reduction standpoint. But the ambiguity in there is what makes it for me. He survives. You survive. There's no telling what will happen next. If we look at the Ring City, it's unlikely that any ending will ultimately lead to lasting happiness. But this ending has a sense of hope that's not present in the others. For the same reason I love ending 1 of the 100 line, for the same reason I chose to let Sean spend 15 years in prison, for the same reason I like seeing the Hollow Knight go free. Just the hope that things will be better speaks to me. If there's even a chance for positive change, you need to do something. So if what makes an ending good to me is hope, that sounds pretty straightforward. Guys, I have a confession to make. I don't care for Verso's ending in Expedition 33. The framing and context make it appear more hopeful, yes. In Mael's ending, she'll die if she stays in the painting for too long, and then everyone in it will die anyway. What's hopeful about that? By then, you'll have to make inferences to keep it hopeful, won't you? The point of the video is not to discuss my preferred ending. Rather, I think it's important to point out these nuances and potential inconsistencies in our own choices. You can't always find an ending tailor-made for you, even when there are 100 of them. You might see hope as inadequate for your own definition of a good ending. It must be for me, considering what I just said about Expedition 33's endings. So what then? There must be an answer, even if it's not an easy one. This all leads me to the final game I want to discuss today, Death and Taxes. Death and Taxes is an indie game where you play as Death. Taxes are not actually part of the game. You have a quota to meet across the span of a month. If you're not up to snuff during your weekly performance review, you will be fired. As Death, that means you will no longer exist. During this game, while you look at your quota of near-death experiences, people's names and genders are anonymized. Even so, you can learn their life stories. You'll eventually recognize through lines. And that makes it so much harder when you're told good people need to die this week, bad people need to live. For example, this isn't an example in the game, but it gives the idea of what the choice is like. Do you want to save a cancer ward doctor or a climate change scientist? Because you can't save them both. One of them has to die. You don't make the rules. After all, you're not God. You're Death. It's in the name. It gets harder and harder to sign off on people's deaths as you go on. Why is it up to you to decide? I mean, yeah, sure, you're Death and all, it's in the name, but what does that change? Once in a blue moon, you'll get strange red cards among your instructions that ask if you just want to break the rules. Don't you get bored of being a peon doing what they're told? It's like the "aren't you tired of being nice" meme, only much more serious since this concerns people's lives. I never followed these red cards. They involved killing even more innocents than usual, and I didn't want to be fired, right? So I just followed instructions. And as you do that, you'll see more and more people dying from similar causes, maybe even linked deaths. Surely it's a coincidence that disease abounds after I killed that doctor, right? Eventually, your month is up. At the final performance review, you realize something. By following these orders, you humored a misanthropic boss who's decided it's time for the world to end. This is the default ending of the game. If you follow the path you're given, do everything right, follow your instructions, it's all over. That's the default ending. But hey, at least you weren't fired. You don't want to get the bad ending, do you? That would just be awful. When I replayed the game, my next step was to just disregard my instructions and not kill innocents. I was fired after a few days. Bad ending, game over. This was when my real playthrough began. A big part of the appeal of Death and Taxes to me was the second playthrough. I was fascinated by the characters and worlds, yes, but now I had a job. I had to break the rules just enough to cause changes compared to the first go-round. But I couldn't break them so much that I'd get fired. Oh, you want your good ending? You're going to have to work for it. There are plenty of games where letting the world end, either literally or more metaphorically, is a valid ending. Even games I've already covered today. Expedition 33, Undertale, Life is Strange, Dark Souls 3, and more all have at least one ending with some variation of that. But I became determined, more than ever, to avert that. It wasn't the bad ending, that was getting fired. But there had to be a good ending, right? One that hopefully fit my personal definition of good, whatever that was. I'm not going to tell you what the final ending I got was. Ultimately, the good ending is what you make of it. For me, the simple answer is that a good ending is one that makes you feel good. But I'm sure others will disagree, especially when audiences can't agree on which ending is the good one. Plenty of people call the Verso ending the good ending, or they'll call the Bay ending the good ending. That's Bay with an E, it's the Save Chloe ending. When there is no good ending, or there's a good ending you have to work for, or there are multiple good endings you have to choose from, or there's a bad ending that's actually not so bad. Video games can reflect us as people in ways no other mediums can. If you have to hesitate when given the choice between saving the world and saving one person, then that game's doing something right. Thank you so much for watching. I wasn't going to make this one next, but I was talking to some friends about Expedition 33's endings because I made a kind of innocuous meme. I'll share it here. And then we got talking a bit and it actually got me thinking. And I just decided I have a lot to say. And, I mentioned in the previous videos I teach, and I thought about talking about that game's ending, seeing what my students have to say about why a more positive ending is framed negatively and a more negative ending is framed positively. I also think that you need to frame the endings that way if you want to commit to not having a good ending. What else can you do? And thinking about that and also other endings that might be similar just kind of evolved into this video. So I feel pretty passionate about it, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. I really enjoyed making it. Thanks again.